guys, I'm Charlotte and today I'll be doing my July wrap up. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible because I don't want to sit here and film a video. Because of that, I'm probably not going to go into too much detail for the synopses for each book. But as always, there will be links down below where you can click and find out more about the book. So let's just start. So last month I read 14 books thanks to the Book Junkie Trials. I'll leave a link to all of that down below. So let's just start with book one. The first book I read was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and this was a reread for me. This basically gives life to the character of Achilles, and I don't really know what to say about this one because I bloody loved it. I knew I would. I loved it the first time I read it and I didn't like it any less. I really enjoyed this one. The characters in this are so sweet and heartwarming, and Patroclus is one of the best narrators I have ever come across. He really appeals to your emotions and your heart, and you can't help but fall in love with him and Achilles the same way that he did. There's plenty of action in this because it does kind of retell bits of the Trojan War with Achilles in it. So there's a bit of everything. There is action and then there is that heartfelt, sweet character stuff as well. But then obviously, because it's about the Trojan War and Achilles and Greek stuff, there is a sprinkling of myth in there. There is Achilles' mother, Thetis, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, take your pick, but she's involved in this, and obviously she is a mythological figure, so yeah, a little bit of everything for everybody. And then I picked up The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson, and this is one that I really can't talk about because it's the third and final book in a trilogy, so just know that it is a chunk and I really enjoyed it. I felt that the main character Leah has grown substantially from the first book. In the first book, she's a little bit annoying, a bit hard-headed and stubborn and refusing to see things as anything but logical. She won't open her mind up to the magic that is in this world. But in this book, she has grown and changed and learnt that she can have magic stuff and still be a logical, reasonable, level-headed person. However, I say there is magic in this. This is primarily a political fantasy series. There's a lot of deception and deceit and stuff going on with courts in this. The main character Leah has actually run away from an arranged marriage and it's dealing with the repercussions of that. However, there is magic in that she has the gift, which is never really explained until this book, so persevere. It is nearly 700 pages, but things do get answered and explained. So yeah, there is a touch of magic in that she has this gift that only first daughters in a family can get. But yeah, it's a good political YA fantasy series, so I would recommend this one. Third, we have another book in a series that I'm not really going to be able to say much about, and that is The Rose Society by Marie Lu. This is the second book in the Young Elites trilogy, and I didn't love this as much as the first one. It has been a while, like 4 or 5 years since I read the Young Elites, and I gave that 5 out of 5 stars, but this one just kind of, I don't remember why I loved it so much, and perhaps I should have reread the first one before diving into this one, but I picked this up on kind of a whim. We had to read a book in a series for this prompt, and so I picked this one because it's in a series and I've had it for bloody ages and I haven't continued the series, but I just don't really know what happened or what to say. The Young Elites is a very dark fantasy with a bit of an anti-hero for the main character, and that is what really drew me in and made me enjoy the first book. However, in this second book, I just didn't have that same kind of connection. The main character, Adelina, is still kind of dark and twisted and messed up, but I don't know, she just seems a bit hung up on the relationship and the romance from the first book, and I didn't want that. I just wanted her being bad, and I don't really feel like we got the worst of her, which is what I wanted. But again, it's difficult to talk about because it is book 2, and also it's just difficult to talk about because it was a bit of a meh, nothing book to me. It was a bit fillery, and I don't really think I'll have an opinion on it until I read the last book, when things will be wrapped up nicely in the story and everything. But yeah, this wrap-up's going well so far. I've barely talked about the first 3 books, so nice going, Charlotte. Then we have Forbidden by Tabitha Suzuma, and I really enjoyed this one. This was the first contemporary of the month for me, and I feel like I could actually say stuff about this one. But this is commonly dubbed as the incest book because, you guessed it, it features incest quite heavily, I must say. However, not as intensely or as disgustingly as you might think. And I know that is a wild thing to say about incest because it's gross. But hear me out. The main characters in this, Maya and Locken, have had a shit family life, to be quite honest about it. Their mother is very absent and they have essentially been forced into the mother and father roles of their 3 young siblings. And it is because of these roles that they have had to adopt that they kind of become more than brother and sister. From a very early age, they have been in charge of the family and doing everything that their parents should have been doing, but because their parents weren't there, obviously it's fallen onto the children. And then because they have kind of had these mother and father roles, they start taking on these roles in themselves and their relationship and start a relationship together. And while it is still like, ew, it's a brother and sister, that's gross and illegal and it kind of makes sense because they've been forced into these roles, and so what mothers and fathers do, they're together, they're in a relationship. And throughout the book they say how close they feel and how they're more than brother and sister, and how they're close in age but they're also close in soul and stuff. And I get it, they've been through a horrific past where their dad walked out on them and their mother has decided that she doesn't want them. She constantly blames Lochan for things, and she just physically isn't there in the house, but she's also like emotionally absent as well. So these two characters had nowhere to turn to other than each other, and things just kind of spiral from there. So if you can get past that aspect of it, and I'm not trying to condone the relationship because no, gross, I will say that it's not graphic in any way. It does heavily feature on the emotions more than any intimate aspects. There is an intimate relationship between these two characters, so if you are sensitive to that, be aware. But then if you're sensitive to that, maybe don't read a book about incest. But yeah, it does focus more on their feelings and is very much a family book at the heart of it. I know that sounds weird, but it does very much focus on their family life. It focuses on their relationships with each other and their relationships with their other siblings, and there is a very nice sibling love there. Not the gross kind, I mean the loving kind, where Maya and Lochan are trying their hardest to watch out for their three younger siblings and are doing everything in their power to make sure that they don't get taken away. The ending of this though, oh my god, this is such a bleak book. Not only do you have the whole incest forbidden love thing, but there is a lot of mental health in this book, specifically with Lochan. He is not a happy character and things do not end well for him, and just the ending is so heart-wrenching. Even though throughout the book you're going, ew, no, this is gross, I don't condone this, there is still that little part of you that goes, oh my god, I love them. And it's a really messed up read in that sense, because you don't want to be rooting for them, but at the same time you can't help it. Even though you're just like, oh no, they shouldn't be doing that, part of you is like, no, they're good for each other. It's a book that makes you think. It's a book that really challenges your own attitudes, I think. So yeah, I did really enjoy this one. And then dipping back into fantasy, we have Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa, and this one I'm a little disappointed by. I really wanted to read this one because with the whole myth take thing Ashley and I are doing, we came across this book and it sounded really interesting to me, and then it was one of those books where I bought it and then immediately read it and it just kind of fell a little flat for me, and that is mostly due to the kind of stylistic choices in the writing. The biggest problem I had with this is the dual perspective that is not explicitly stated. The chapters alternate between Yumiko and... what is his name? The perspectives flip between Yumiko, the Kitsune main character, and Tatsume, the demon slayer other main character, but it's not specifically stated at the start of each chapter. Like, look, you just get the title of the chapter, which is all fine, apart from the two main characters have a very similar voice and it's not always apparently clear who is talking. The saving grace is that it does just alternate, so you have one from Yumiko and then you have one from Tatsume. However, you then have a random third person perspective thrown in, which is how the book starts, and this is where my second problem with this comes in, because the book starts in third person talking about a character that is barely even mentioned throughout the rest of the book. It's not Yumiko, it's not one of the main characters, and I got really invested in that. And like, let me just read you the first line and you'll see why I was so hooked and into the idea of this book. It was raining the day Suki came to the Palace of the Sun, and it was raining the night that she died. Like, hello, I'm interested in that. But then you have this chapter from this kind of outside perspective talking about Suki, and then you just don't really hear from her until way later in the book. It does get explained and why that all happened, and it is kind of integral to the plot, but at the same time I wanted to hear about her and what was going on with that. I didn't really care for Yumiko or Tatsume as characters. Yumiko was very young and naive and kind of annoying in her childishness, and I didn't like that. And then Tatsumi was this brooding character, which normally I would love, except for the fact that there is a kind of budding romance in this, and I'm just like, please, please, can we just not? I did like the fact that it was a slower burn, but at the same time, it could have just been not there and it wouldn't have affected anything. The relationship they had without any romantic undertones was like absolutely fine. It was really sweet, the way that they were teaching each other things. But yeah, my favourite character in this was probably Okame, the Ronin, who they stumble across halfway through their journey, and then he kind of tags along with them because he just won't leave, even if they want him to. But he was really funny, the kind of comedic relief, but more so in a sarcastic way rather than Yumiko's naivety and the way that she's like, oh, I don't know what that means, so I'm going to make a joke that I don't know is a joke, but you all know is a joke, and that was an awful explanation, but you get what I mean, hopefully. Yes, good, moving on. I really did like the Japanese fantasy parts of this, like the kitsune and all the different demons and everything like that. And I do really want to read more books about kitsune because I really like foxes, and seeing a fox demon, I really enjoyed that. It's something that I have never seen before, but it really played on the fact that foxes are seen as kind of symbols for trickery and deceit and like wiliness, and I really like that. So yeah, I did enjoy this, but I just had a few problems with it that stopped me from enjoying it as much as I wanted. Add to that, it is quite a slow read because Julie Kagawa just has that kind of writing style. She also does fairly long chapters, which, don't get me started on that, it is my biggest pet peeve in books. Just put breaks in between them, they don't need to be that long. But yeah, I did like this, and I probably will continue the series because I feel like it could get better, but I'm not in a hurry to because it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. We have a helper, there's a kitty here. Come here. Come here. Oh. This one just can't help herself. I sit on the floor and she's just like, what are you doing? Do you want to go on the bed? Look at my sweet baby girl. Say hi. Say hi, you're on the internet. Okay. Go. She's off. Cat hair everywhere. And then after those 5 books, my main quest for the Book Junkie Trials was done. So I started taking a bit of a detour and exploring the kingdom. My first stop on my kind of explorations was a graphic novel, and that was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, and I actually really loved this. I'm surprised I hadn't read it before. I got it ages ago, I think for my 21st birthday, which is like, what, 2 years ago now, which is kind of mad to say, but here we are. 23 almost, and I'm finally getting to books that I bought. But this is just a collection of short stories written in the kind of, well, I should say drawn because they are in the graphic novel style. All of them are a bit spooky, a bit creepy. They all kind of feature the woods in some way, hence the title, and they are just really, really good. They're so short, but they all do pack in that little bit of creep, some of them more so than others. But overall, the theme and the tone is dark, mysterious, creepy, spooky. How many more times can I say creepy and spooky? But yeah, there are 5, I think, in this, and I really enjoyed all of them. There wasn't one that I disliked. I didn't really dislike anything about it. I gave it 5 stars because I bloody loved it, and I'm kind of kicking myself for leaving it so long to read. Yeah, can't really say much more other than I really enjoyed this. And then we reached the Myth Tape Book of the Month for July, and that was Circe by Madeline Miller. This is a big reason why I read the Song of Achilles again, because I wanted to reread that before I went into this, so like it all worked out. But yeah, this was the book of the month for Myth Take, and I didn't really like it. I have done a full vlog on this. I'll leave a link up here and down below if you want to go and see my full thoughts on that, because I don't want to get into that rant again. I basically spent about 20 minutes going off on why I was disappointed by this, but it came down to the fact that I didn't like the main character of Circe, I didn't think the writing style worked, and it was just a bit boring. And by a bit, I mean very, extremely boring. Nothing really happens in it, the plot just meanders, and it's very much a character study on Circe, and as I said, I didn't like her as a character, so I didn't want to read about her life and everything going on with that. I wanted some action, but she is not your sword-wielding heroine. She is a more passive heroine in her own way, and we've had a lot of discussions on this, and I'm not trying to downplay her and her story and her as a person, etc. Basically, it's just, it wasn't my cup of tea. I'm going to leave that here. If you want to see more, have a look at my vlog. Just because I didn't like this, I'm not trying to say it's a bad book. If you liked it, that's fair enough. Just have a polite discussion with me. Don't rip my negative opinions to shreds, because I'll fight you, probably. And then we come to my worst book of the month, and that is The Great Fire of London by Samuel Pepys. This book was awful. I gave it 1 star because I just didn't enjoy it. I only really read it because it's been on my TBR forever, and I thought it would be a quick one because look how small it is. It's 50 pages, but my god was I wrong. This small book that I could have read in like an hour took me an entire day because I knew that the writing would be difficult for me to get along with because obviously it's written from like ye olde time. So yeah, the writing was difficult for me to get my head round. I didn't understand a lot of it, but then there was more the fact that there was no context for this. The first half of it is just parts of his diary, which zero context. You don't know who is who, you don't know what's what, you literally just know nothing. It's just him saying, oh, I went for dinner with this person and we did this and I went here, and you're like, hang on a minute, what? The second half did get a little more interesting because obviously it was about the fire, but by that point I had just kind of lost interest. It had been dragging on for too long and I still couldn't understand it, and there was still no context, and I just didn't like it. The saving grace is I can finally say I have read this. However, I think I'm going to have a purge of my classics because after reading this I'm just like, I don't want to read anymore. So I am probably going to be quite ruthless with not only my little black classics but the other classics I have. Yeah, this has kind of solidified the fact that I don't like classics. I try, but I don't. I'm sorry. On a lighter note, we have To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, and I really enjoyed this one. Again, this is a Myth-Take book that I came across because of Myth-Take and then became interested in, and I read it. This is like a darker retelling of The Little Mermaid. This is a standalone fantasy, and I really wish there was more in this because I really love the main characters of Lyra and Elian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing those names correctly, forgive me, but like the main character that we're introduced to first is a siren, and that is different to a mermaid. I found that very confusing, the distinction between what is a mermaid and what is a siren. The first chapter or so is quite info dumpy, and that was kind of not off-putting, but it kind of made me sit back and go, okay, right, this is what's going on. But yeah, that main character is a siren, and then the other main character is a siren hunter. As you can see, those two things are at odds with each other. However, I love this. I really love this. It's not as dark as I wanted. However, the relationship in it is so sweet for something so dark. This is a good look into my psyche, something really dark and messed up, and I'm going, oh, isn't it sweet? Isn't it lovely? So that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, the two main characters in this, Lyra and Elia, they do start a relationship, and they kind of are navigating the fact that they are forbidden, I guess. But then I don't know how much is spoilers, but basically they meet and it doesn't go off well, but then they meet again, but things are a bit different, and that's when they start falling for each other, and there's lies and deceit and deception, and then the end is a big battle, and then things all just wrap up nicely. And I just have really done this dirty by saying all that because that is not a good description of it, but it's really good, and I'm gonna stop. It's really good, it's really dark. If you like mermaids and sirens and books set at sea, if you like pirates, definitely give this a go. It kind of gave me Pirates of the Caribbean vibes, especially when Lyra is on the ship, because she kind of gave me some Elizabeth Swann vibes. That's all I'm going to say because, again, I don't know what is considered a spoiler, but the relationship in this is very slow burn, and for once I could actually get behind a romance in a fantasy book. So yes, I really enjoyed this one. My only problem was that it was a bit confusing at the start. Next up is The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 2, Fandemonium, and I couldn't tell you what happened in this one even if I wanted to because I don't really know. I had no idea what was going on in this. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, because it's about these gods that have been reincarnated as teenage pop stars essentially, and this kind of, as the title Fandemonium would suggest, kind of has the fans and conventions as a big thing and the kind of pop culture of them, but I really can't remember what happened in that first one to understand what happened in this one, so I'm not entirely sure. I just know that there were some new gods introduced in this one, and I got really excited because one of them was one of the Norns from Norse mythology, and that was really satisfying for me to see because I just really love Norse mythology. But yeah, I enjoyed the artwork in this immensely. It's by one of my favourite graphic artists. I will show you because it is glorious. Like, this is one of the issue covers, and just like, look, I just love the style. I love the use of colour in this, and I will be continuing with this. Before I read volume 3, I will reread volumes 1 and then this one. So yeah, I don't have much to say on that because it's a sequel, so I couldn't really tell you much, but then I don't really know what was going on. Oh, for fuck's sake. My Tara books just fell over. Then we have what was probably my favourite book of the month. I know there are a few other 5-star reads in that stack, but this one was the 5-star read that I think I enjoyed the most, and that is We Are Young by Kat Clark. I did not expect to love this as much as I did. I knew I would enjoy it because I read Girlhood and really enjoyed that, and I go on and on about Girlhood and how Kat Clark's amazing, but I've only ever read Girlhood, but that changed this month. So yeah, I picked this up and I really loved it. I was a bit put off by the cover of this because of the records, and I thought music would play heavily in this, and music does feature in the plot. Hi Maisha, what are you doing? Cool. Music does feature in the plot, however not as much as this cover would suggest. It was very much a kind of mystery thriller. I don't want to say it was a thriller. There was something going on that the main character was trying to like track down clues for and get to the bottom of it and get the truth of it. So in that sense, yeah, I guess it is a thriller. There's a bit of a mystery going on. But I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the relationships in this. I mean, platonic and romantic. There isn't really a romance in this. The main character in this, well, the bisexual main character, I must say, because Kat Clark, getting that rep in, is best friends with one of her male exes and one of her female exes. So you kind of got this would-be love triangle, except it's not. It's actually really sweet the way that they're all friends and they're not bitter about it. But then you've also kind of got the re-blossoming of the relationship with her and her female ex. So that was really nice to see play out, because it wasn't just, oh, they're in love and everything. It was more of a getting to know each other again and getting back together. It's kind of, I'm doing a really bad job here, but yeah, it's kind of a slow burn again, I guess, but not. There's a hint of romance, just a little bit. But the primary focus of this is the family drama and the mystery surrounding that, because the main character's mother has remarried, and so now the main character has a stepbrother, except that stepbrother was in an accident, and that accident has been very sketchily reported. But main character, Evan is her name. Evan's father is a journalist and he is kind of reporting on this, but people are like, nah, don't do that. So she's like, why are they telling you not to do this? What's going on? What actually happened? How did the people involved know each other? So she kind of becomes a PI, I guess, to try and figure all that out. She goes around interviewing people. I really enjoyed it. Just the fact that there was a little bit of mystery, but it's not like a police thing, because police things I don't always understand because I'm not a police officer, believe it or not. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. The family dynamics in this just made me smile so much. Like, it's not great for Evan, but then the relationship she has with her mother at the end of it and the way she reconnects with her father, it's really sweet. And her little brother was really cool as well. I really liked him. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars. I adored this. It's probably my favourite Kat Clark now. In fact, it is, because I only gave Girlhood 4 stars. This is my favourite Kat Clark book I've read, and I'm very excited to read more of her stuff. Then we have another graphic novel, and this is Jessica Jones Volume 1, Uncaged. I didn't like this. Context. Oops. There was none. There was no context. There was just, you need to have read a lot of backstory about this. You need to have read a lot of stuff about Jessica Jones to fully understand it. Obviously, you can go in like kind of blind off the TV show and still know the basic, but it's quite heavy on her relationship with Luke Cage. And if you didn't know about that, then spoiler alert, because this just, it assumes you know. It's got a lot of stuff with Captain Marvel, and it just doesn't really make sense unless you know stuff. Thankfully, I did know the basics, but it just, the context of the mission that she's on with Captain Marvel and all the deceit and lies that are part of that, I didn't understand. I needed more to know that. And then it just comes down to, I didn't like the art in this at all. It works because it's kind of that noir style. Like, look at that. I know she's a PI and the whole point of the show is that it's supposed to be kind of like detective noir, and you know, this style and colour palette works for it. I just didn't like it, so I'm very disappointed with that. I expected to like this a lot more. I like the TV show, I didn't like this. I won't be continuing with that series. Finally, we're into the last 2 books. Penultimate book is A Kiss in the Dark by Kat Clark. Yes, another one. After reading We Are Young and flying through it, I knew that I could get through another one really quickly, and I was on like a high from that, and I was just like, I need more Kat Clark in my life. This one was not as good, but it's okay. I enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it, if that makes sense. This is a very weird take on trans characters, and I don't even like that sentence I said, saying a take on, because, you know, trans people are people and there shouldn't be like takes on them or whatever, but this is where the issue comes in. The main character in this is never explicitly stated to be trans or non-binary or anything, and I know that it doesn't have to be, but at the same time, for this plot, it does, because she ends up in a relationship on the basis of lies. The character that the main character Alex gets involved with is under the impression that Alex is actually a boy, and Alex doesn't do anything to correct her. And then it comes into this whole thing of Alex thinking that she has to be a boy and she has to dress like one and act like one and everything, and it's just a very uncomfortable situation. The fact that, you know, there's deception going on, but then also the fact that it's not because she feels a certain way or because that's who she is, it's just kind of, oh, I need to do this because it's a costume. And it's weird, and like I said, this is why I said it's a weird take on a trans character, because the character is not trans and yet she's acting like she is, but there's no acknowledgement to that, and it's just not very nice, I guess. I'm not an expert and I don't want to say anything that could be perceived as offensive. I'm just trying to say that the way that this was written was not good, because it was not. But then this gets a whole lot worse when Alex's girlfriend accuses Alex of a sexual assault that was not committed, and I just... Why would you... She essentially ruins Alex's life by doing that, and then at the end Alex still forgives her, and I'm just like, what? Well, I don't understand the choices that were made to have that as a plot device, and I don't understand is what this boils down to. It was a choice, and it was not a good one. So yeah, but then at the same time, I was still hooked enough, and it was so fast paced to keep me going and keep me reading. I did enjoy it, but I really didn't enjoy the subject matter. So I'm very conflicted about this one. If anyone has read this one, please come and talk to me about it, because I don't think I've properly processed it, because I didn't like it, but I did. And I don't know what to do. And then finally, thank God, I know we're all really glad that this is over, I read The Twisted Tree by Rachel Burge, and I really enjoyed this. This is a kind of modern day retelling of some of the Norse myths. It features my boy Odin. I say that because, like, he is my boy. I've got a great big tattoo of him on my leg. I'm about to show you. Look, there he is. That's my boy Odin. So the main character Martha is a descendant of Odin, and the Twisted Tree is actually Yggdrasil, and she is a guardian of it essentially now, except her mum has kept these secrets from her. Her grandma was the only one that knew these things, but because her mum was kind of in denial about it, she didn't tell Martha, and then when Martha finds out, turns out it's too late because her grandma was dead. So yeah, it's all a bit wild when she goes to Norway and finds out that, oh god, these things are real. But then the main problem with this is because the tree has not been looked after, there is a Draugr on the loose, and if you don't know what a Draugr is, they are essentially the Norse zombie. They are the undead that come back to life. If you play Skyrim, you'll know. There's one hunting the village that Martha's grandma lives in, because since her grandma died, no one's been looking after the tree. Her mum's in denial, Martha hasn't been there. So yeah, it's just fighting that basically, and then learning more about the Norse pantheon and stuff. I think this is a very good introduction to Norse myths because it's very fast-paced. It's very short. It's not heavy on terminology or new names or any of the specific stories. It goes into how Odin lost an eye and hung himself from the world tree to gain the runes and everything. It features the Norns, it does feature the Draugr, but it's very much an introduction, like I said, because Martha is new to all of this, and therefore she's learning alongside you. If, like me, you do know stuff, it's still a nice read because, I don't know, it kind of made me excited about it all again, and kind of reminded me of how I was learning about the things. And because obviously I play Skyrim and there were Draugr in that, seeing them featured in a book was like, I don't know, it was just exciting, and I really enjoyed it. And there's also the fact that Martha herself really parallels Odin. I knew, first of all, going in, before I knew about the Twisted Tree, that there were going to be like parallels of Odin and Yggdrasil, because Martha is blind in one eye and she became blind, but guess what, she fell from the tree, and I'm just like, who else did that? I know. So so yeah, I saw those parallels coming, and then when it was revealed about the tree, it just all made sense, it all clicked into place, and this was such like a little happy read for me, which is bizarre because it's a really dark, creepy read. But I really enjoyed that, so I gave this 4 stars because I really liked this book, and I'm glad I read it, and I think everyone should read it. So so please do. But yeah, those were all the books I read in July. Aren't we all glad that's over? I am, because I don't want to sit down and film videos. I'm probably going to start doing a lot more vlogs. Filming a vlog is so much easier and so much more low-key than actually sitting down and filming a video, and I just enjoy it more. Expect a lot of vlogs from me. Sit down videos are not my forte. I don't enjoy them. I become this sassy little gremlin, and they don't work for me, so those were the books I read in July. If you have read any of them, please let me know. Let me know what you read in July. And I will see you again soon. Bye.